The Academy station floated in the darkness between stars. It was a massive structure, built by many species working together over hundreds of years. Students from across the galaxy came here to learn. They studied science, history, art, and the ways of different civilizations. It was a place of knowledge and respect. On this particular morning, the History of Warfare class was about to begin. The classroom was large, with seats arranged in a half circle. The walls were made of a clear material that showed the stars outside. It was beautiful, but most students had stopped noticing it long ago. Instructor stood at the front of the room. He was a species known for their tall bodies and silver skin. His eyes were large and dark, and his movements were slow and careful. They were an old race. They had built empires when humans were still living in caves. They were proud of their history and was no different. Today was a special day. Had spent weeks preparing for this lecture. He had requested special permission to bring artifacts from These were not copies or images on a screen. These were real objects, thousands of years old. The students began to enter the room. There were many different species. Some had scales, some had fur, and some had skin in colors that humans would find strange. They took their seats and talked quietly among themselves. Near the back of the room sat two humans. Their names were and they were exchange students from Earth, here for 1 year of study. Humans were still new to the galactic community. They had only made contact with alien life about 50 years ago. Many species still thought of them as young and simple. Was a quiet young man with short black hair and dark eyes. He did not talk much in class. He preferred to listen and watch. Some students thought he was shy. Others thought he was not very smart, but knew him better. She knew that his mind was always working, always thinking. Sat next to him. She was more outgoing than she asked questions and made friends easily. She had learned to speak 3 alien languages since arriving at the academy. She often had to explain human culture to curious classmates. "I heard today's lecture is going to be special," whispered to real artifacts. Nodded but said nothing. He was looking at the front of the room where Instructor was preparing something on the main table. The room became quiet as raised one of his long hands. His voice was deep and smooth, like water flowing over stones. "Today, we will study something very important," began. "We will look at the weapons of ancient. These blades were carried by our greatest warriors. They fought to protect our people and build our civilization." He pressed a button on the table. A force field around a display case disappeared. Inside the case were 3 blades. They were beautiful. The metal was a dark blue color, almost black. The handles were wrapped in material that looked like leather but had a slight shine to it. Strange symbols were carved into the blades. The students leaned forward in their seats. Gasps of wonder filled the room. Even species that did not use weapons in their history could feel the importance of these objects. They were old. They were rare. They were sacred to the people. "These blades are called the teeth of morning," said with clear pride in his voice. "They are over 4,000 years old. Our ancestors believed that the gods themselves helped forge them. For many centuries, only the royal family could touch them." A student with green scales raised a hand. "Instructor, were these used in actual combat?" "Yes," answered. "They were carried into the Battle of Frozen Rivers, one of the most important battles in our history. General carried one of these very blades. With it, he defeated the enemies who threatened our world." The students whispered to each other in excitement. Allowed himself a small smile. He had waited a long time for this moment. He wanted his students to understand the glory of history. Stared at the blades. His head tilted slowly to one side. His eyes narrowed. Something was wrong. He could not say what it was yet, but something felt wrong. Noticed his expression. She had seen it before. When looked at something that way, it usually meant he had found a problem. She felt a small knot form in her stomach. Continued his lecture. He talked about the metal used to make the blades. He talked about the techniques that ancient smiths had used. He talked about how these techniques had been lost to time and how no one today could make blades like these. The balance of these weapons is perfect, said. Our ancestors understood things that we have forgotten. They made weapons that were both beautiful and deadly, works of art that could also take life. His frown deepened. His fingers moved slightly as if he was holding something invisible in his hands. Watched him carefully. She knew that look. He was not just listening. He was thinking hard about something. The lecture went on, showed images of ancient warriors. He played recordings of historians explaining the importance of these blades. He spoke with passion about the honor of his ancestors. Most students were impressed. They asked questions about history. They asked about the battles and the warriors. They praised the beauty of the blades, but remained silent. He did not ask questions. He just stared at the weapons with that strange, confused look on his face. His head was still tilted, like a dog hearing a sound it does not understand. Leaned close to him. "What is it?" she whispered. Shook his head slightly. "I am not sure yet," he whispered back. "Something is not right." "What do you mean?" Before could answer, looked in their direction. Do the human students have something to share with the class? The room became very quiet. All eyes turned to look at him. Some students looked curious. Others looked annoyed that the lecture had been interrupted. Was about to apologize when spoke. His voice was soft but clear enough for everyone to hear. "Instructor," he said slowly, "may I ask a question about the blades?" Nodded. He looked slightly annoyed, but he was always willing to answer questions. "Of course. What do you wish to know?" Took a deep breath. He was not comfortable speaking in front of so many people, but the question in his mind would not go away. It burned like a fire that needed air. "Why are they imbalanced?" he asked. The room went completely silent. No one moved. No one spoke, stared at with his large, dark eyes. His silver face showed no expression, but his hands had become very still. "What did you say?" asked quietly. Swallowed hard but did not look away. "The blades," he said, "they are imbalanced. The weight is wrong. Why?" In 4,000 years, no one had ever asked that question. And now, a young human from a world that had only recently learned to travel among the stars was challenging the most sacred weapons of the people. The silence in the room was so complete that everyone could hear the soft hum of the space station around them. The silence lasted for what felt like a very long time. Could feel the eyes of every student in the room on him. Some looked confused. Others looked angry. A few seemed curious about what would happen next. Instructor stood perfectly still. His silver face gave nothing away, but his large, dark eyes had grown even darker. When he finally spoke, his voice was cold like ice. "Imbalanced," repeated the word slowly. "You believe the teeth of morning are imbalanced." Nodded. He wished he had stayed quiet. He wished he had not said anything. But it was too late now. The words were out and he could not take them back. "Young human," said, "these blades have been studied by the greatest scholars of my people for thousands of years. They have been called perfect by masters of the blade, by historians, by scientists. And you, after looking at them for a few minutes, believe you have found a problem that no one else has seen." Some students laughed quietly. A few shook their heads. The idea was clearly foolish to them. What could a human know about ancient weapons? Humans had been fighting with sticks and stones when they were building cities among the stars. Put her hand on his arm. She was worried about him. She could see that he was uncomfortable with all the attention, but she also knew that never said things without reason. If he thought something was wrong with the blades, then something probably was. "I apologize if I have said something wrong," said quietly. "I did not mean to insult your history or your people." Raised one of his long hands. "I am not insulted," he said, though his voice suggested otherwise. "I am simply curious. What makes you believe these perfect weapons are flawed?" Looked at the blades again. He studied them carefully. His eyes moved along the metal from the tip to the handle. He looked at the way light reflected off the surface. He looked at the shape, the curves, the thickness. "The weight," he said finally. "Looking at the blade, I can see that the weight is not spread evenly. The balance point should be here." He pointed to a spot on the blade. "But with that handle and that blade thickness, the balance point is probably somewhere else, further back toward the hand." More students laughed. One alien with 4 arms made a sound that might have been a snort of disbelief. "And how can you see this just by looking?" asked. "You have not touched the blades, you have not held them. You are making guesses based on nothing but your eyes." Was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that surprised everyone in the room, including, "My grandfather was a blacksmith." The room became quiet again. This time the silence felt different. There was confusion in it and also a little curiosity. "A blacksmith," repeated, "someone who makes things from metal." Nodded, "Yes, in the old way, by hand, with fire and hammer. He lived in a city called on Earth. He made knives and tools. Sometimes he made swords for ceremonies and for collectors. I spent many summers with him, watching him work." Looked at her friend with new understanding. She had known for almost 2 years now, but he had never mentioned this before. He was always quiet about his family and his past. "My grandfather taught me many things," continued. "He taught me how to look at metal, how to understand it, how to see where the weight sits and how it moves. After many years, you do not need to hold a blade to know its balance. You can feel it just by looking." Stared at for a long moment. Something in this expression shifted. It was small, barely visible, but noticed it. The instructor was not just annoyed anymore. There was something else there. Doubt, perhaps, or maybe fear. "That is an interesting skill," said slowly. "But I find it hard to believe that a young human can see something that generations of masters have missed." "I am not saying they missed it," replied carefully. "I am only saying that I see something different. Maybe I am wrong. Maybe my eyes are fooling me. But I have looked at many blades in my life and these ones look strange to me." A student in the front row raised a hand. She was a species with pale blue skin and no hair. Her voice was soft and musical when she spoke. "Instructor, perhaps we could test the human's claim. If he is wrong, we will know. If he is right." She did not finish the sentence, but everyone understood what she meant. Did not answer right away. He looked at the blades on the table. For the first time, there was uncertainty in his eyes. These weapons were treasures of his people. They were sacred. The idea that they might be flawed was difficult to accept. "The teeth of morning cannot be handled by anyone but trained historians," said. "There are rules, traditions." "I understand," said. "I did not mean to suggest that I should touch them. I was only answering your question about what I see." The room was quiet again. Students looked at each other, not sure what to think. This was supposed to be a simple history lecture. Now it had become something else entirely. Watched Instructor carefully. She could see that he was struggling with something inside himself. On one side was pride in his people and their history. On the other side was the possibility that might be right. Finally made a decision. "Very well," he said. "I will allow a simple test. There is a scanning device in the laboratory next door. It can measure the weight and balance of an object without touching it. We will use this device to examine the blades. If the scan shows perfect balance, as our records indicate, then we will have proven that human eyes are not as skilled as you believe. If not—" He did not finish the sentence. The class was dismissed early, told the students to return in 2 hours. By then, he said, they would have their answer. And walked together through the corridors of the station. Had many questions, but she waited until they were alone before asking them. "Why did you never tell me about your grandfather?" she asked. Shrugged. "It never came up. Also, I was not sure if it mattered here. Everyone on this station has technology that is thousands of years more advanced than anything on Earth. What use is a blacksmith in a world of starships and force fields? Apparently some use, said with a small smile. You really think the blades are wrong? I know they are, said quietly. I have been looking at metal since I was a child. Those blades are beautiful, but they were not made for fighting. A warrior could not use them properly. The balance is wrong for combat. But they said these blades were used in a great battle. They said a general carried one. Stopped walking. He looked out a window at the stars. His face was thoughtful, almost sad. Then either the stories are wrong, he said, or those are not the real blades. Felt a chill run down her back. If was right, this was bigger than a simple mistake. This was about history, about truth, about the pride of an entire species. She said softly, "Are you sure you want to do this? If you are right, they might not thank you. They might be very angry." Turned to look at her. His dark eyes were serious but calm. "My grandfather used to say something," he told her. "He said that metal does not lie. You can make it into any shape you want. You can make it beautiful or ugly. But in the end, the metal knows what it is. You cannot fool the metal." He started walking again and followed. "Those blades are lying," said. "They are pretending to be something they are not. And I think it is time someone told the truth." 2 hours later, the class gathered again. The room was even more crowded than before. Word had spread through the station about what had happened. Students and teachers from other classes had come to watch. Everyone wanted to see if the human was right or wrong. Stood at the front of the room. Beside him was a scanning device, a complex machine that could measure things that eyes could not see. The 3 blades lay on the table, ready to be examined. The instructor's face was as calm as ever, but noticed that his hands were trembling slightly. Whatever happened next would change things. She was sure of that. "Let us begin," said. And he activated the scanner. The scanning device hummed softly as it began its work. A blue light moved slowly over the first blade, reading every detail of its structure. Everyone in the room held their breath. The silence was so deep that could hear her own heart beating. Numbers and images appeared on a large screen behind. They showed the blade from many angles. They showed the density of the metal, the thickness at different points, the exact weight of each part. Watched the screen carefully. He understood some of what he was seeing, but not all of it. The technology was far beyond anything on Earth. Still, he knew what to look for. He knew what the numbers should say if the blade was truly balanced. The scan took about 3 minutes. When it was finished, the machine made a soft sound. The results appeared on the screen in large, clear letters. Stared at the screen. His silver face showed no expression, but his body had become very still, too still, like a statue. "What does it say?" someone in the crowd asked. Did not answer. He seemed unable to speak. The student from before walked closer to the screen. She read the results out loud for everyone to hear. Balance point, 73% toward the handle. Center of mass, offset by 4 degrees from the central axis. Structural analysis. Weight distribution suggests ceremonial purpose, not combat application. The room exploded with noise. Students talked over each other. Some were shocked. Some were confused. A few students looked angry, their silver faces turning a darker shade of. "That cannot be right," one of them said loudly. "The machine must be broken." Finally moved. He raised both hands to call for silence. It took several moments for the room to become quiet again. "Scan the other 2 blades," he said. His voice was flat, empty of emotion. The machine scanned the second blade. The results were similar. The balance was wrong. The weight was not spread evenly. It was not made for combat. The third blade was the same. Sat quietly in his seat. He did not feel proud or happy. He felt sad. He could see the pain on his face. He understood what this meant to the people. Their most sacred weapons, the pride of their ancient history, were not what they believed them to be. "I do not understand," said softly, almost to himself. These blades have been in our temples for thousands of years. They are part of our most important stories. How can they be wrong? No one had an answer. The room was filled with uncomfortable silence. Then stood up. He walked slowly toward the front of the room. Everyone watched him, looked at him with eyes that seemed empty of hope. "May I look at them more closely?" asked. "I promise I will not touch them." Nodded weakly. He had nothing left to lose. Bent down to study the blades. He looked at them from the side, from above, from below. He examined the metal, the handles, the carvings. He spent several minutes in silence thinking. "These are very well made," he said finally. "The work is excellent. The person who made them was very skilled." "But they are fake?" asked. The word seemed to hurt him. "No," said. "They are real. They are truly old. The metal shows its age. The handles have been worn by many hands over many years. These blades are exactly what you say they are, ancient weapons." "Then why are they imbalanced? Why are they wrong?" Straightened up, he looked at with gentle eyes. "Because they were never meant for fighting," he said. "These are ceremonial blades. They were made to be beautiful, to be carried in parades and rituals. They were made to show power and wealth, not to kill enemies." The room was silent, shook his head slowly. "But the stories say General carried one of these blades into battle. They say he used it to defeat the enemy." Thought about this for a moment. "Maybe he did carry it," he said. "Maybe he held it while his soldiers fought, but he did not use it to fight. He could not have. A blade like this would be dangerous to use in real combat. The balance is wrong. The weight is wrong. A trained warrior would feel it immediately." A student in the crowd stood up. Her face was twisted with anger. "How dare you?" she said. "How dare you come here and destroy our history? You are just a human. Your people were living in mud houses when my ancestors ruled the stars. What do you know about anything?" Stood up quickly, ready to defend her friend, but before she could speak, raised his hand. "Enough," the instructor said. His voice was tired but firm. "The human has not destroyed anything. He has only shown us the truth. The truth was always there. We simply refused to see it." The angry student sat down, but her eyes still burned with fury. Looked around the room. He could see many emotions on many faces: shock, anger, confusion, and sadness. He had not meant to cause so much pain. "I am sorry," he said quietly. "I did not want to upset anyone. I should have kept silent." Shook his head. "No, you did the right thing. It is better to know the truth even when it hurts." He looked at the blades on the table. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he spoke again, and his voice was softer than before. "When I was a child, my father took me to see these blades. They were kept in a great temple on our. I stood before them and felt such pride. I thought, these are the weapons of my ancestors. These are the tools that built our civilization. I wanted to be worthy of them." He paused. His dark eyes were wet with something that might have been tears. "Now I learned that they were never what I believed. The stories I was told, the pride I felt, it was all based on a mistake, or maybe a lie." Stepped closer to the instructor. "Not a lie," he said. "I do not think your ancestors meant to trick anyone. I think they forgot." "Forgot?" "Yes, these blades are very old. 4,000 years, you said. In that time, many things can be lost. Skills can be forgotten. Knowledge can disappear. Maybe the people who made these blades knew exactly what they were. But over time, as the knowledge of metalwork was lost, the truth was forgotten too." Considered this. Slowly, understanding came to his face. "You are saying that we lost the ability to see what these blades really are." "Yes. If no one knows how to work metal in the old way, then no one can tell the difference between a war blade and a ceremonial blade. They look almost the same. Only someone who understands how blades are made would notice the difference. And humans still have this knowledge." Nodded. "Some of us. My grandfather learned from his father who learned from his father. The knowledge has been passed down through many generations. On Earth, there are still people who work metal by hand the old way. We never completely forgot. The room was quiet. The anger had faded from most faces. Now there was only thoughtful silence. Looked at for a long moment, something changed in the instructor's eyes. The coldness was gone. In its place was something like respect. Perhaps, said slowly, there is wisdom in being a young species after all. You have not had time to forget the old ways. Shrugged, we have forgotten many things too. Every people loses knowledge over time. The important thing is to keep learning, to keep asking questions. He looked at the blades one more time. These are still beautiful, he said. They are still important. They are part of your history, even if that history is different from what you believed. The people who made them were still skilled. The people who carried them still had courage. That has not changed. Nodded slowly. He reached out and for the first time touched one of the blades with his bare hand. It was against tradition, against the rules. But the old rules seemed less important now. Thank you, he said too. You have given us a painful gift today. The truth is not always easy to receive, but it is always valuable. Bowed his head slightly. I am sorry for the pain. I hope someday it will lead to something good. The class ended without any more lectures. Students filed out slowly, talking quietly among themselves. The day's events would be discussed for a long time. Waited for near the door. When he reached her, she put a hand on his shoulder. That was brave, she said. Shook his head. That was stupid. I made an enemy of an entire species today. No, said, you made them think. That is not the same thing. They walked together through the corridors of the station. Above them, through the clear walls, the stars continued to shine as they always had, unchanging, uncaring, keeping their own secrets. But on the Academy station, secrets were beginning to come into the light. 3 days passed after the incident in the classroom. During those 3 days, tried to live his normal life. He attended his other classes. He ate his meals in the dining hall. He studied in the library, but nothing was normal anymore. Everywhere he went, people looked at him. Some looked with curiosity. Some looked with anger. A few looked with something like admiration. Word had spread through the entire station. The human who challenged the blades. The blacksmith's grandson who saw what masters could not see. Stayed close to him. She worried about the angry looks. She worried about what some students might do, but seemed calm. He had done what he thought was right. Whatever came next, he would accept it. On the 4th day, something unexpected happened. Was in his small room, reading a book on his tablet when a message appeared on his screen. It was from Instructor. The message was short. Please come to my office. There is something you should see. Stared at the message for a long time. He did not know what to expect. Maybe was angry. Maybe there would be punishment. Maybe he would be sent back to Earth in disgrace. But something in the message felt different. There was no coldness in the words, no threat, just a simple request. Put on his jacket and walked to his office. The corridors were quiet at this hour. Most students were in their evening classes or eating dinner. His footsteps echoed on the metal floor. When he reached the office, the door opened automatically. Was inside, sitting behind a large desk covered with papers and screens. But he was not alone. There were 3 others in the room. They wore robes of deep purple, a color that had learned meant high status in their culture. Their silver faces were lined with age. These were important people, very important. Please sit down, said. His voice was gentle, almost kind. Sat in the only empty chair. He looked at the 3 older. They studied him with careful eyes. This is the human, one of them asked. He was the oldest of the 3, with dark lines running across his silver skin. Yes, said. His name is, he is from Earth. The old nodded slowly. We have come a long way to see you, young human, from our. When we heard what happened, we had to come ourselves. Felt his stomach tighten. He was in trouble. These were probably government officials come to punish him for insulting their culture. "I am sorry," he began. "I did not mean to cause offense, if I have broken any laws." The old raised a hand. "You have broken no laws, you have done nothing wrong." He paused. "In fact, you may have done something very right." Blinked in confusion. This was not what he expected. Pressed a button on his desk. A large screen on the wall lit up. It showed an image of the three blades from the classroom, the teeth of morning. "After your discovery," explained, "I contacted the Historical Council on our. I told them what you had found. At first, they did not believe me. They thought the scanning machine was broken. They thought I had made a mistake." One of the other old spoke. She was a female with very dark eyes. "We sent our own experts to examine the blades. They used the best equipment available, the most advanced scanners in the galaxy." And asked. "You were right," she said. "The blades are not balanced for combat, they never were." Nodded. He had known this already, but there was something in the way they spoke that suggested there was more to the story. The oldest leaned forward. His eyes were intense, burning with something like excitement. "Your discovery made us ask a question," he said. "A question we should have asked long ago. If the teeth of morning were ceremonial, then where are the real weapons? Where are the blades that were actually used in battle?" The screen changed. It showed an image of an old building, a structure made of white stone on a planet with two suns. "This is the Temple of Ancestors on our," the old explained. "It is the most sacred place in our civilization. No one has been allowed inside for over 2,000 years. The temple was sealed by order of the ancient kings." Why asked. "We do not know. The records say only that the temple contained dangerous knowledge, knowledge that could destroy our society. So it was sealed and everyone was told to forget it existed." Took over the explanation. "After your discovery, the Historical Council decided to open the temple for the first time in 2,000 years. They wanted to find the real war blades. They thought perhaps the true weapons had been hidden there." The screen changed again. This time it showed the inside of the temple. There were rows and rows of objects on stone shelves. Blades, spears, shields, armor, all of them old, all of them covered in dust. "We found over 300 weapons in the temple," said. "We tested all of them. And they are all perfectly balanced. Every single one. The weight is correct. The center of mass is correct. They were made by masters who understood metal in ways we had forgotten." Looked at the images. The weapons were beautiful, but in a different way than the teeth of morning. They were simpler, more practical. They looked like tools that had been used, not objects that had been displayed. "But that is not all we found," the old female said. Her voice was soft with wonder. "We found books, records, instructions." The screen showed an image of old pages covered in writing. The text was in an ancient form of the language. "These records explain everything," she continued. "They explain how the weapons were made. They explain the techniques that were used, techniques that we thought were lost forever." "Why were they hidden?" asked. "Why did your ancestors seal them away?" The oldest sighed. It was a heavy sound full of old sadness. "Because they were ashamed," he said. "Our ancestors reached a point where they no longer needed to fight. They built machines that could protect them. They signed treaties with other species. War became unnecessary. And so they forgot how to make weapons," said Understanding. "Yes, but it was not just forgetting. They chose to forget. They decided that the knowledge of violence was dangerous. They believed that if no one knew how to make weapons, no one would want to fight. So they hid everything, the real weapons, the knowledge, the techniques. Yes, and they replaced them with the ceremonial blades, the teeth of morning and others like them. Pretty objects that looked like weapons but could not be used as weapons. Over time, everyone forgot the difference." Sat in silence, thinking about what he had heard. It was a sad story, a people trying to escape their violent past by hiding it. But you cannot escape the past by pretending it does not exist. The truth always finds a way out. "What will you do now?" he asked. The old looked at each other. Something passed between them, a silent communication that could not read. "We will tell the truth," the oldest one said. "We will open the records. We will show our people what really happened. It will be painful. Many will be angry, but lies cannot stand forever." He turned to look directly at. His dark eyes were deep and ancient, filled with thousands of years of history. "You have done our people a great service, young human. You saw what we could not see. You asked the question we were afraid to ask. Because of you, we have found knowledge that was lost for 2,000 years." Did not know what to say. He had not expected this. He had expected anger, punishment, shame, not gratitude. "I just saw that the blades were wrong," he said quietly. "I did not do anything special." The old smiled. It was a strange expression on his silver face, but somehow warm. "Sometimes," he said, "the most special thing is simply to see what is there, to look at something everyone else has looked at and see it differently. That is a rare gift." He stood up slowly, his old bones making soft sounds of protest. "We would like to offer you something," he said. "A chance to help us. We have the records now, but we do not fully understand them. The knowledge of metalwork has been lost to us for so long. We need someone who can read these old techniques and explain them to us." "You want my help?" "Yes, you and your grandfather if he is willing. We will pay for his travel to we will give him anything he needs. We just want to learn." Thought about his grandfather, the old man who worked with fire and hammer in his small shop inn. The man who had taught him to see metal, to feel its weight, to understand its secrets. What would his grandfather say if he was asked to teach an alien civilization how to make weapons again? Knew the answer immediately. His grandfather would say yes, because knowledge should not be lost, because skills should be shared, because teaching is the best thing a person can do with what they know. "I will contact him," said. "I think he will be very interested." The old nodded with satisfaction. "Good, then something wonderful will come from this day after all." He walked toward the door, but stopped and looked back at one more time. "Thank you," he said, "for reminding us that the young can sometimes teach the old." Then he was gone and was left alone with. The instructor looked at him with eyes that held new respect. "You have changed things today," said, "more than you know." Nodded slowly. He thought about the blades, about the hidden temple, about the knowledge that had been locked away for so long. "I just asked a question," he said. Smiled. "Sometimes that is all it takes." 6 months passed. The galaxy changed in small ways and large ways. News spread from planet to planet, from station to station, carried by travelers and transmissions. The story of the human and the blades became famous. At first, many species laughed at the story. A human seeing something that ancient aliens could not see. Impossible. Foolish. The story must be exaggerated. But then the government released the records from the Temple of Ancestors. They showed everything: the hidden weapons, the lost techniques, the truth about their history. They admitted that they had been wrong for 2,000 years. They thanked the human who had helped them remember. The laughter stopped. People began to think differently about humans. On the Academy station had become famous. Students pointed at him in the corridors. Teachers asked to speak with him. Reporters from different worlds wanted to interview him. He hated all of it. "I just want to go back to being normal," he told one evening. They were sitting in the observation deck, watching the stars. Laughed. "You were never normal. You are the grandson of a blacksmith who can see the soul of metal. That is not normal anywhere in the galaxy." Smiled a little. She was right, of course. He had never felt normal, not even on Earth. He had always seen things differently, noticed things that others missed. His grandfather used to say it was a curse and a blessing. "My grandfather arrived on the last week," he said. He sent me a message yesterday. What did he say? Pulled out his tablet and showed the message. It was a video showing an old man with hair and rough hands. Behind him could see the white stone walls of the Temple of Ancestors. My grandson, the old man said in Korean. You will not believe this place. They have things here that I have only read about in old books, techniques that I thought were lost forever. They are like children, so eager to learn. I have already taught them how to fold steel in the traditional way. Tomorrow I will show them how to balance a blade. The old man smiled, and his eyes were bright with happiness. I am proud of you, he said. You remembered what I taught you. You saw what others could not see. That is the most important skill a smith can have, to see the truth of metal even when everyone else is blind. The video ended, wiped a tear from her eye. Your grandfather seems like a good man, she said. He is the best man I know. They sat in silence for a while watching the stars. So many worlds out there, so many civilizations, so much knowledge both kept and lost. What happens now? Asked. What will you do with your fame? Thought about the question. He had been thinking about it for weeks. Many opportunities had been offered to him. Schools wanted him to teach. Governments wanted him to advise. Companies wanted to pay him for his knowledge. I have decided to study history, he said finally. Not the history that people tell in stories, the real history. The history that is hidden in objects, in buildings, in tools. The history that you can touch and see and feel. Like a detective. Something like that. There are so many things in this galaxy that people have forgotten, so many truths that have been lost. The blades were just one example. There must be others. Nodded, a human detective finding lost knowledge across the galaxy. That sounds like an adventure. Smiled, maybe, or maybe it will be boring. Either way, it feels right. A message appeared on his tablet. It was from the dean of the academy, asking to meet with him tomorrow. Another person who wanted something from the famous human. But this time did not feel annoyed. He had learned something important over the past 6 months. His knowledge, his way of seeing things, it was not just useful to him. It could help others. It could change things. Maybe even change the galaxy in small ways. His grandfather had always said that a good smith does not keep his knowledge to himself. He teaches others. He shares what he knows, because knowledge that is not shared is knowledge that will die. The next morning met with the dean. She was one of the blue-skinned species with musical voices. Her name was, and she had been watching since his first day at the academy. I have a proposal for you, she said. We want to create a new department here at the academy, a department that studies material culture across all species. We want to understand how different civilizations make things and what those things can teach us about history. And you want me to be part of this department. We want you to help create it. Your experience with the blades showed us something important. Humans have knowledge that other species have lost. Ways of working with materials, ways of seeing objects. This knowledge could help everyone. Thought about the offer. It was bigger than anything he had imagined. A whole department dedicated to the kind of work he wanted to do. What about my studies? He asked. I am still a student here. Dean smiled. You would continue your studies, of course, but you would also help us build something new, something that has never existed before. She leaned forward, her dark blue eyes serious. The galaxy is full of lost knowledge. They are not the only species who have forgotten important things. Every civilization has secrets, hidden truths, lost techniques. We need people who can find these things. People who can see what others cannot see. People like me. Yes, people like you, and others. Humans have surprised us many times since you joined the galactic community. Your species is young, but you carry knowledge that older species have forgotten. The old ways of making things, of working with hands and tools, these are not primitive skills. They are wisdom. Sat in silence for a long moment. He thought about his grandfather working in his small shop, keeping alive techniques that were thousands of years old. He thought about the blades, beautiful objects that had hidden a lie. He thought about all the other secrets waiting to be found. "I will do it," he said. "I will help you build this department." Dean nodded with satisfaction. "Good. We will announce the new department next week. It will be called the Institute of Material Heritage, and you will be one of its founding members." Walked out of the dean's office in a daze. He had come to the academy station as a simple exchange student, hopping to learn about alien cultures. Now he was going to help build something new, something that could change how the galaxy understood its own history. Was waiting for him outside. She could see from his face that something important had happened. "Well," she asked, "what did the dean want?" Told her everything. Eyes grew wide with excitement. "This is amazing. You are going to be famous, more famous than you already are." "I do not want to be famous. I just want to find the truth." Laughed and put her arm around his shoulders. "Too bad. You are going to be famous anyway. The human who sees what others cannot see. The grandson of the blacksmith who taught the galaxy to make weapons again." They walked together through the corridors of the station. Around them, students from dozens of species went about their daily lives, talking, laughing, studying, dreaming. Looked at them all. He wondered what secrets their cultures held, what knowledge had been lost, what truths were waiting to be found. His grandfather's words echoed in his mind. "Metal does not lie. You cannot fool the metal." But it was not just metal, it was everything. Objects told the truth even when people forgot. Buildings kept their secrets even when centuries passed. Tools remembered how they were made even when the makers were long dead. The galaxy was full of lies that people had forgotten were lies, full of truths that had been buried under time and dust and pride. Would find them. One by one, he would bring them back to the light. And perhaps, in doing so, he would help the galaxy remember something important, something that humans had never forgotten, even in their darkest times. The past matters, the truth matters, and sometimes the youngest voice in the room is the one that needs to be heard. The stars continued to shine outside the station windows, distant and cold but no longer quite so unknown. Somewhere out there, in temples and tombs and forgotten corners, the secrets of 1,000 civilizations waited to be found. And grandson of a blacksmith would be the one to find them,